Welcome to Be Creative, Be Free. From the world renowned to the neighbor next door, we feature individuals living their creative truths with the goal to inspire and educate our audience toward the creativity in themselves. Welcome a jack of many trades, an artist across multiple mediums, including painting, tattooing, and music. Joining us from Amsterdam, Mr. Peter Duddington.
Hello, Brandon. It's such a pleasure to be here, man. Really, thank you for thinking of me.
Of course. No, I'm glad you could join us. And if you don't mind, I know I introduced you, but also it'd be great if you could also introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do creatively, aside from dodging cats.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's see. Yeah, so tattooing is indeed how I make my living primarily. So that's a wonderful way of connecting with people and making art. I really love that. But it can't be everything, right? So music is definitely always going to be a big part of my life. I love to sing and play guitar. Let's see, painting wise, yeah, I'm obsessed with portraits. I love people's faces. I really like to obsess about what makes the soul so slightly different and unique. Let's see, there's that. And then filmmaking is my first and greatest passion.
Excellent. Yeah. So we'll get into all of it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how this started for you.
Yeah, I was born in Portland, Oregon, to some very supportive parents. I grew up in a household where my mom would play piano a lot. My dad was into photography. I don't know,
Cool.
Yeah, they put me in piano lessons when I was a little kid, and then moved to saxophone from there. And when I was like 10 or 11, they started putting me in animation classes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that really gave me the bug on that one. So,
wow. You grew up in a creative household, clearly. Do you remember kind of your first creative memory?
Ooh. Yeah, kind of. I was writing songs before I really knew how to do it, right? Like, yeah, it must still exist somewhere. Yeah, for sure. It was piano. It was definitely piano.
Did you kind of ask them to try those things, or were they kind of gave you these kinds of different experiences to try as parents?
Yeah, I wish I could say it was my own impetus, but I have a feeling that it was them like seeing something in me, liking to drawing lots of cartoons and stuff. And yeah, I think that's what it was. I really think that they were just like, let's find something for this kid to do.
Yeah.
And animation was the first one I really locked onto,
Cool. So you took classes. Did you do that in school too, or were you kind of always doing classes on the side? Like, how did that
Yeah, that was
develop?
a Saturday Academy thing, they called it. So yeah, on weekends I would go down to the Portland Art Museum. There was a area where we took animation classes, and I'm still in contact with that teacher like 30 years later. I'm going to shout her
awesome.
out, Sharon Nimchek, wonderful human being.
Yeah, shout her out, man. That's great. It's so important because I find this with everybody I've talked with and myself too. There's those people, right, that help guide you in one way or the other or make such an impression on you that, to your point, you still know her after 30 plus years, right?
Right, absolutely. I mean, yeah, a kid can only do so much on their own volition. It really does, at that age, require somebody to be like, no, you're capable. Do it,
Yeah. So that's awesome. So you're drawing, you're starting getting into drawing, you're getting into like junior high school. How was that? How did you kind of develop other kind of ways of creative outlets around that time?
Let's see. Yeah, in high school, that's where I discovered my love of portrait painting. Yeah, shout out Gail Fleener, my high school art teacher. Yeah, that was the big one there. And then in high school, that's also where I started losing some of the patience required for animation. And live action film became more of an interest.
Gotcha.
being very real.
Let's just have some people do some things instead. This frame by frame stuff is.
Yeah, when you're a little kid, it's so easy to spend 6 hours laying on the floor drawing, right?
Yeah. It's true. It takes quite a big amount of patience to work through that. You're getting into film too,
Mhm.
and I mean that's kind of where we met too.
Yeah.
And so then, how did that go for you? As far as like, you went into did some film school, right?
Yeah, I went to film school for 4 years at Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Going down to Orange County was definitely a big step for me.
Hmm.
So different than Portland, but it seemed in my mind, at least at the time, if you want to get into film, you go down to Southern California.
Right.
Um, and that was really nice. It expanded my worldview quite well.
Hmm.
Started playing music in groups more so than just by myself,
Mm-hmm.
and just met other weirdos. Yeah, like my little friendship group was so supportive, and it was just a bunch of creative weirdos. And if you had an idea, there would be somebody who could support that, or
Right.
many people that could support that.
Right.
That first time of like large collaborative stuff was really huge.
That's cool. It's different, you could be so imaginative and so creative yourself, and there's definitely a different vibe when you're bouncing off of people. And I was always in bands, same thing. Always in bands, always had something. I'm still friends with everybody I've ever been in a band with,
Nice.
because you just have that kind of connection. I mean, who knows? There's probably somebody who doesn't like me, or vice versa. But
Whatever.
but for the most part, no. For the most part, it was always amicable. It was always like, it wasn't about, other things happened, or whatever. But it didn't really change the connection that we had when we were making music.
No,
Right,
absolutely.
right, or collaborating on a film, or
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Once you start getting outside of your own self, and
yep,
if you want to make something great, sometimes you have to trust in the abilities of others. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
you can't build a pyramid by yourself. That is not going to happen. So,
yep. Okay, so then how did you get into tattoo artistry? How did you get into doing tattoos?
sure. Okay, let's see. The origin of my interest at all. I always claim there's two main things that made me interested as a child in tattoo.
Hmm.
It was the liner of Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic
Mm-hmm.
with the photos that Gus Van Sant had taken of their tattoos.
Uh huh.
Blew my little kid mind.
Yeah.
And then there was this other show called The Adventures of Pete and Pete about two redheaded brothers that were both named Pete. And the younger one, who was like 8 or 10 or something like that in the show, he had tattoos. And we were just like, so I was always fascinated by it. And I
Yeah.
had gotten one when I was in high school.
Mm.
In college, I got engaged to a woman who ended up having an affair. Kind of like broke me.
Yeah. That didn't
And
work
I
out.
was like trying to refine myself. What
Mm.
have I always wanted to do for myself that I felt limited in before?
Mm-hmm.
It was like, well, I've always wanted more tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
So I started getting more tattooed, and I started feeling better in my own body. Like the body image issues that I'd always felt kind of started
Mm-hmm.
melting away. And it was a very healthy, nice thing. And I was like, well, shoot, if I can give this to other people, then that's going to be some good feeling, like
Yeah.
positivity.
That's cool. What was it like giving the very first tattoo to somebody?
The very first tattoo was on the guy who apprenticed me. So yeah, no pressure at all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was scary. That was definitely very scary.
Mm.
But then I ended up tattooing myself a lot.
Okay.
And the process of tattooing yourself, I think, is sure it can be scary, but you have more leeway to try things you wouldn't have clients for. Like
Sure.
my first fingers were my own fingers. My first portrait's on my leg. Um, Ethically, I think it's very good to try things on yourself.
Yeah.
I still get really nervous tattooing certain people and these kinds of things. As far as trust goes, though, there is an example that really pops
Hmm.
out in my head. I had been tattooing in Amsterdam at this little tourist kind of shop
Hmm.
for my first 2 years here. And
Mm-hmm.
I did some little tulip or something, I don't even remember what it was, on this woman. And she hit me up on Instagram later on. She was from Saudi Arabia, and she had lost like 30 kilos, and she was maybe like 5 foot tall, some more. So she ended up getting skin removal surgery. And so she had a scar that went all the way around her whole like waistline,
Yeah.
and she wanted that covered up. So I made her wait until it was like ready to be worked on. But yeah, then 2 days back to back, I did this incredibly vulnerable cover up on her.
Wow.
That's number one.
Wow. Yeah. That is a lot of trust.
Right?
For sure. Yeah, man. That's cool. What is the craziest tattoo that you've ever had to do? I would say for like complexity, I guess, or something that was like,
Oh,
you want me to do what across what, or
yeah. Well, other than the Batman symbol above this woman's bat cave, um, that one will always ring true. Yeah, as far as like high detail, in Berkeley, I had a friend who modeled a lot for me. I turned her into all sorts of different pinups, and we became very close friends. And she ended up getting a portrait of Prince on her forearm, and the head in that tattoo was like 2 inches, 2.5 inches at best, because it was like a waist up kind of image
right?
for one of his album covers, and I could barely sleep the night before. I got
Yeah.
like 5 hours of sleep, and I woke up and I was just thinking Prince's face, Prince's face.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't sleep. I ended up nailing it, thank God. But that level of obsession can happen sometimes, for sure.
Yeah. Of course. You want to get it right. And so, I think that happens a lot with us creative types. You balance the obsession with the balance of letting go, like, okay, it's time to let it go now. When to stop?
Yeah,
I guess
right?
when to stop is a good question. It's
I
a good
can
one.
only do my very best. That's as best I can do. And
Right.
nothing's ever going to be perfect, but we can absolutely prepare ourselves to succeed.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Doing that little pencil study, like trying to wire that stuff in your brain. Yeah.
Yep. And there can always be something you can change with it, or something you can always do to it. You just have to know it. You just got to let it go. I always find the hardest part. You're like, okay, all right, nope, I'm just gonna let it go. It's time to let it run wild. It's not mine anymore.
Yes. Yeah, there's well, also like in art, and I know you work in audio so much, it's
Yeah.
like you want it to sound like it's made by a human. Like, so as far as like rawness and like what makes Nirvana such a special band versus like Nickelback and the overproduction of that, it's the same kind of thing for me as like painting a portrait that still looks like a painting. The hyper realistic kind of thing that a lot of people are doing now, I don't quite understand it, but I respect it, certainly. Certainly I respect it, but it just doesn't calculate.
Yeah, I hear you. It's like when we went to shooting everything so clean and then using film grain or whatever to bring it back
Yeah.
and make it feel like film, you know, or where we start going in, people start getting into high frame rates. It starts to look like too hyper realistic, too soap opera ish, and you lose that cool kind of film or that wall that I think lets you appreciate it a little bit more from afar, like a painting, like you said. Keep that essential features of a painting, or keep the essential features of, oh, this was a film versus cinematic. When people
Yeah.
think of when people think of cinematic, they don't think like super fast action, GoPro camera,
No.
right?
Right? Yeah.
It's like
Overly
there's a
sharp.
feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love my Black Magic Pocket Cinema camera original, like the
Yeah.
1080.
It all has its uses. Just say it's like whatever feeling you're going for, right? And I think
Certainly.
that's interesting that you say that, like doing a portrait and keeping it like a painting. It's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
To your point with Nirvana and Nickelback, you're like, what are we going for here? We want to keep the raw energy in the room, and that's our impression, or are we going to track this guitar 500 times and
Yeah.
make it sound like Def Leppard or something, or or Nickelback?
Full on.
They're all choices, but I think we all have our own tastes as well in that pendulum of where it could go. It's so funny because it's like a lot of people have skills, but I always look at it like you become a tastemaker in whatever you do. That's why people come to you.
Hmm.
Oh, I like Peter's taste. That's why I go
Sure.
right? Like,
Yeah, and in tattoo, it's such a delicate thing because it's the most personal art form there is, right? And so when
right.
people are like, "What do you think would it be better here or here?" I'm like,
You're like, this is on you for
yeah.
like forever, if possible, probably, right?
The
So,
most I'll ever say is if it was my skin, I would put it in X, Y, or Z position.
yeah,
That's as close to as a real opinion as I ever throw out.
right. That's a lot of pressure.
A little bit, yes.
You can't fix that one in post, right?
Yeah.
You do art on canvas and you do art on people.
Mm-hmm.
So how do those skills translate?
Oh, interesting.
What do you think?
Well, patience, I think, is one of the most important aspects of this kind of stuff. There's no lazy tricks to do any of this, right?
Right.
And so I think building up time and how long you're willing to sit in front of a canvas or skin, that really is maybe the most important. Knowing when to stop, like we were saying before, is such an important element. But also knowing how you can go further when an amateur might think that they're done already.
Right.
Those next steps that make it look like a professional project. My first 5 years of tattooing, I did take art classes all the time, just so that a breadth of knowledge was there. I've done my very best in my tattoo career to not have a style. Again, it being such a personal art form, I don't think my ego has any place in the equation. I'm essentially just there as a conduit to get people to where they want to be.
I guess that's a really good point, because to keep that breadth of knowledge, you kept learning in all these other areas and styles, right? And skills,
for sure.
And aspects of art to then keep your mind wide open, so you're not like, oh, I just do this way every time.
I'm a very big believer. If I could have anything that I can contribute to this podcast, it would be the rule of thirds is in everything.
Yes.
It's in storytelling with a 3-act structure. It's in how you frame a shot, like in an interview or anything in film. It's in music, the dynamics of everything. Literally, the rule of thirds is everywhere. And I like balance, not symmetry. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and I think it's the same in music too. I know you're the rule of thirds too, but I always look at it when I'm going to try to write something, I always listen to a bunch of other kinds of music that is not the kind of thing I'm working on.
Absolutely.
You listen to everything else helps influence whatever that thing is, instead of I'm going to listen to this kind of music because this is the kind of music I want to write. That is such a trap, I think, for people.
100%.
Versus just being open and just pulling in all these influences and then let it go through you as the conduit, and then it becomes, but through that you still put your personal touch somewhere in there, and then that's your thing, right?
Oh, very
that's
much.
How I look at it.
That's how you make more interesting stuff, I think, right? So
yeah,
I don't want to make the same thing over and over and over again. That has no appeal to me.
Right, exactly. I always think that getting started is always the toughest part. But maybe that's just me. I mean, how do you approach a drawing or I guess a portrait? You have a reference, but if you're trying to approach a drawing, how do you get started?
Oof, yeah, that's a big one. I am really good at starting projects.
Oh, that's
finishing
great.
Finishing them is the hard part.
That's the hard part for you. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I have so many halfway done portraits and halfway done screenplays and stuff. I honestly, I wait for the inspiration. I might paint 10 portraits in a month and then not paint for another year. Being very honest with you, I really lack that kind of discipline that Stephen King talks about. I need to get that. That is my primary goal for the next portion of this life.
Yes.
Getting discipline to follow through. Yeah. Sure.
But you run with the inspiration and you do a burst, and then you go with it, right?
Yeah.
I'm all for that. You got to run while the iron's hot. When you got a feeling,
absolutely.
You got to do it.
I very much believe in self greenlighting. not
Yeah.
waiting for anybody else's permission to do something. And
Exactly.
if you look at the portraits that I've painted, they're not usually like the most famous people. They're like these random celebrities that I adore.
Sure.
I want to celebrate, but
Yeah. But that's what makes it cool though, because somebody's gonna love it, right? It's like you're painting the deep cuts,
yeah, absolutely.
like I know that if you like this person, then I know we're gonna be good.
This is correct.
Right?
Those are my favorite people in the world.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because that moment, like I have a Samurai Jack tattoo, and anytime somebody recognizes that in the street, I'm like, he's an all right dude, or she's an all right chick. Like,
What would then be your top art influences? Like
mm,
if there was a Mount Rushmore of artists,
yes.
who would be up there?
Well, I love Salvador Dali. Um, Now he did have some problematic things in his life.
We'll just put personal life aside and go
Yeah,
purely in the talent this
super
side,
duper.
the art side. Yeah, we'll just make
Yeah.
that disclaimer. I'll make that disclaimer for you.
Let me show you this one. That is Bill Plimpton. He's my
Yes.
favorite animator of all time, and
Yep.
there's me as drawn by him. Um, yeah, Bill Plimpton, with paper and pencil and a very minimal crew of other people, has animated like 7 or 8 feature-length films by himself, and they're not like cartoons. They're like surrealistic, beautiful, Dali-esque kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk
Um,
about patience.
oh, yeah, absolutely. Um, Terry Gilliam, he's another huge one for me. I
Hmm.
guess I like surrealists.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's like coming out. You're like, wait a minute.
this
Start
all
thinking about my
calculating.
faves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been obsessing a little bit with Tim Armstrong and
Mm.
Rancid,
Hmm.
Operation Ivy, all of that kind of stuff really. But,
Nice.
who knows what's going to be next year. But for the moment, yeah, I've been obsessing with that kind of stuff.
Do you think that there's that kind of there's definitely a crossover between like art and music as well, like art for music
Hmm.
can kind of influence the art itself, right? Like you said, I think when you talk about Rancid and
Hmm.
Operation Ivy and stuff,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or like you look at somebody like Donald Glover and his
hmm
Childish Gambino stuff. He had one of his albums had a whole like lore and videos and all sorts of different things that were going on with it.
hmm
Because it can be a whole experiential thing if you let it be.
hmm
I mean, you're old enough that I'm sure you watched the premiere of Thriller when that first came
Oh
out.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah,
That
I
was a
did.
huge event.
That was the biggest event ever. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
everybody knew
it's
it was happening.
it's so funny too. Like I was thinking about that. I was watching the We Are the World documentary that's on
Mm,
Netflix.
yeah.
And when you think about it, it's pretty amazing that like the way the world worked at the time was these guys got in a room one night, banged out the song, banged out the video, and then they were able to coordinate that everyone in the world is going to watch this and experience it at the same time. And like
Monoculture. Yeah.
that does not happen anymore. That would never happen again. I mean, you can put it out and be like, this is going to happen at this time, but you're not going to get the whole world to
Yeah.
listen at the same time on anything anymore, right?
Yeah. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Rick Beato was
Yeah.
talking about how like certain artists are both bigger than they have ever been and also smaller because the monoculture is there. Like, is it really possible for people to not know Taylor Swift's music even though she's the biggest thing it's ever been? Yes, it
Right.
is because we're all finding our niches.
We're a very tailor-made society now, which is super cool for the individual.
Yeah.
But I think you're right in the sense that there is not that communal connection on everything at the same time. There's always that thing of like, hey, have you seen that? No, I haven't. What's it on? Oh, it's on this. Oh, no, I don't have that. Oh, I don't know. Okay. How many times does that
Yeah.
happen? And you're like, oh, okay. Or they're like, oh, we're like a few episodes in, but I won't say anything about it. Okay, all right, okay. Like, there's no like, oh, we all watch this on this day and that night, which is,
Yeah.
it's all good. It's just part of the evolution of how we all consume things. But
It is. The water cooler discussions are still happening, but yeah,
yeah,
it's different than it was when like Lost was coming out, and like that was
exactly. When Thriller came out, that was just like, oh my God, what is this? It's like music and film. Even though MTV had been out for a little while, it
yeah,
was the first time that was like a long form version for a song, like
yeah,
maybe a short
absolutely,
film,
right, yeah,
Yeah. And now it's just like constant short form content and tons of it all the time. It seems like.
yeah. Pre MTV, the Beatles were making music videos
Yeah.
and movies.
Yeah. I remember Yellow Submarine as a little kid somehow
Yeah,
on TV or something, right? And with the animation and the whole thing, and like that was, you're right. It was already happening
yeah,
in
but
different
like
forms.
it'd be really fun to see a huge artist do a Hard Day's Night kind of a concept, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
tie it all together.
Totally. But it just seems like people are kind of catering a little bit more now to it, understanding it might be disposable. So it's like, it's not
Ooh,
like you drop quality, but you just have to constantly be in. Attention is like the currency maybe more than the quality. I don't know.
yeah, no, you're
This is
absolutely
weird,
right.
right?
And you have to have constant content coming out so that people stay engaged.
Right.
So how can you have constant content coming out if you come up with an A plus plus product once every 4 years?
Right. Right. Like when people used to take that time to make an album or something, or it's just like not anymore.
No,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it's a little depressing when you hear like oh, how to get more Spotify listeners. You got to release something every 2 weeks on the dot, and it's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
And every song is a single, like,
Right. 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 Like, do you think that was the case? Do you think that I mean, the Beatles cranked out a lot of music within a very short amount of time, but
shocking.
still they weren't like, all right, we're gonna make a song and get it out in 2 weeks. Like that's kind of crazy. Unless you just assume like, all right, this is gonna be jamming on an early version, it's acoustic version. That's what you get.
That
For two
too.
weeks.
Yeah.
There's no time to
No,
explore the full
exactly.
the full vision.
Yeah, it's like we're all in like some sort of hostage situation where we're just like, just crank it out.
Yeah, yeah. It is. It's like it's a weird thing. You could still be making stuff, but then you have to go and then promote it and do the whole thing and be your own label essentially. Which in a way is good because you should have a hand in it. But time is a thing, and
Yeah.
so then you moved to Amsterdam,
Yeah.
and how is that in terms of culture for art and music?
Oh, it's
You know,
absolutely amazing. I will say Amsterdam specifically is kind of a tough spot to be in a band. Everybody's a DJ here. Everybody's
gotcha.
doing psytrance or drum and bass
Yep.
or hardcore techno with a K. But as far as being an artsy kind of place, I've really found a beautiful thing here. Um,
Awesome.
I got really lucky with landing in a scene with like a lot of the street art scene. I'm quite nicely tied into, and
Nice.
there's just always something going on here, and a lot of little squats and places where you can be creative freely, and a lot of community supported places. Like last week, I actually showed my film for the first time in a squat, and
Awesome.
yeah, it's been there since like the '70s or something like that, and so now it's I think might even be government supported or something. I'm not entirely sure, but
Wow.
yeah, there's a
That's
lot
cool.
of yeah, so much
I mean, I've
unique.
loved it. I've been there once or twice, and I love it. I love the town, but I wasn't living in it, so I was so
Yeah,
curious. Like, I was just really impressed with the culture. It's
yeah.
such
There's whole
fun.
areas where it's legal to do graffiti and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's a remarkable place.
Do you find that with the legal zones, there's just more like, okay, we're gonna do graffiti there, and there's less graffiti elsewhere? Just
Mm.
curious. I'm just curious. It's
Yeah,
like, oh no, we
probably.
got we got a place to do it. Let's
Yeah,
just do it over there.
honestly, yeah, I would say so. As far as large pieces, Like, you might
Yeah.
see a little tag here and there.
I mean, somebody's gonna, yeah.
Yeah, but compared to other European cities I've been through, it's a very controlled thing, and they're able to keep the center of town looking, nice and not ancient, but old,
Yeah.
14,
Yeah.
1500s. They're all about like harm reduction here, right? So
Yeah.
if sex working is going to be a thing, then let's give people a safe place to do it. If people want to take drugs. I remember when I was still coming here as a tourist, there was one year where they had signs in every hostel and bar and everything. If one of your friends has taken what they believe to be cocaine, but all of a sudden they're getting really tired and they're having a hard time breathing, call the police. We will come and help you out. No one will get arrested, but because someone was selling heroin and calling it coke, and there were a couple people that died, and that whole maturity is kind of amazing. It's like people are gonna do stuff, right? Let's just make it as good as possible.
I wish we had more of that here in the United States.
Yeah,
a little more maturity around it. When you kind of normalize it and make it more like, this is the thing. Like, ooh, I'm doing something bad. Like, you take that away, and people are kind of like, all right, well, that's that for them. It's not for me. It just seems to be more.
How many Dutch kids smoke weed, even though it's quasi-legal here? Very few. The taboo excitement isn't there.
The taboo, thank you. Yeah, exactly. The excitement's not there, so you're just like, oh, okay. So
it's true.
So tell me a little bit about your band.
Let's see. So
tell me what is the band. Tell me the name and
okay. So
or tell others the name and what it's about.
The band you're thinking of is called Godverdomme.
Okay.
It's spelled like Godverdomme. In Dutch, it translates to goddamn dumb. And
okay.
Yeah, it's the I always refer to it as the most accurately named band in the world. Yeah,
I love it.
So it is really dumb and fun. And so as far as like influences go, I've always loved Ween and their ability to genre jump.
Yep.
Sonically, I've always really loved like Red Fang and this kind of like Soundgarden. Chris Cornell is my everything, and so want to exist in that kind of world, but with like Lonely Island kind of humor, inappropriate songs that you might want to hide from your parents, but then they find it. And
That's awesome.
Yeah. The first single was called "Jesus Wants You to Punch Nazis." So.
I mean, he would.
It was fun. Man.
Maybe not right-wing Jesus, but pretty much sure any other Jesus would.
Yeah, not the one in those new Trump Bibles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, back in the day when we was in 12 Feet Tall, we used to have a song called Cajones en su cara, which was with balls on your face, and it was where if like a crowd was not listening to us, we bust that out. Ding 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 ding. Cajones en su cara, and then the lead singer would come out, and we come out with a whip, and we like start like crack a whip. Oh yeah, we had it as a.
I got to see you guys. That was such a fun time. Yeah.
Just to break up to get the attention, we totally had a song like that, and that was it. That was all it was, and then it was just like that was the whole song. It was just repeating that over and over, and then it was like ole, 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 and that was it. It was like a minute song just to like break it up.
Amazing. God bless.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So I'm all for throwing in humor, and if you make it the pivotal part of the band too, that's great. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, you just gotta be shameless sometimes. As long as you're not taking cheap shots at people that are vulnerable. All the cheap shots I was taking were at myself.
Yeah, exactly. Did you play out live? I know you said it was kind of tough with.
Yeah.
There's a lot of electronic scene. I think that's kind of a general thing in music right now too. There's a lot of electronic influence.
Yeah. update is that our drummer moved to Italy in
Oh no.
December. So that band is a little bit on hiatus, but we did have a lot of little fun level of success. I don't know with it. As in, like, we were playing clubs and we were able to go across all the way to Serbia this last summer. That was pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, this isn't a story I usually talk about, so mom and dad don't pay attention to this. But
We can edit it out if you
yeah,
want.
we
It's all good.
might have ended up playing a Serbian biker rally. Um,
Wow.
yeah, we were playing this like roadhouse kind of place there, and then they're like,
Yeah.
"You guys got to come tomorrow. You're free, right? Come play at this biker rally." And now there's all these dudes in leather vests and stuff.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was wild. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that. We were able to make a few music videos. That was super fun, and
Nice.
and we did release our album. That was like one of the last things we ever did with the band. But I still have hope for the future on that one. Um,
Nice.
there is another band I've just been starting with some friends though. It's yeah, we'll see if we stick with this name. But right now we're calling it the Schlongest. It's and the premise of the band is that like we're
What is
either
the premise, Peter?
yeah so there's these aliens called the Schlongest that come from Uranus, right?
Yeah.
And
Of course.
we're either
Yeah.
gonna be the aliens or a cult
Mm-hmm.
that worship aliens. I'm not sure exactly yet, but
Okay. All right.
I don't know, man. I don't know. We might have gone too creative with this one.
We might have got too far.
Yeah,
Let's just. I'm just gonna play
being
guitar.
yeah,
Yeah. No.
after being in Host for Dome, the most goddamn dumb band of all time, I just wanted to sing a normal song and like have
Yeah.
something that could maybe be listened to by people.
Well, I mean, hey, if you can develop a cult, then you'll have people to listen to it,
Yeah, that's true too. That's a
right?
good
Right?
audience to have.
It can work together.
A literally captive audience.
A literal cult following. You get the cult
Yes,
first.
that too.
Oh, and we make music. You ever notice actually that like most cult leaders they are musicians? You ever notice that?
It's an integral part of what they do.
Right?
Yeah.
They're also like, oh, I also wrote a song, everyone. Before we take the Kool-Aid. I just wanted to show you my new album.
Good idea. I should come up with a uniform that all of our fans have to wear.
Yes.
Like, yeah, growing up in the 80s in Oregon with the Rajneeshis and all that stuff that was happening.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Me and my brother weren't allowed to both wear red or salmon color or whatever it was at the same time. Like,
Didn't want to be mistaken.
no, my mom was
for
like,
being a
oh, no.
cult.
Yeah, you guys can't both wear that now.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I appreciate too. You know, you did the art for my album back in 2012. It's
Of
crazy.
course, it was an honor.
For Momentum, and oh, thank you. And created the logo for the Decibel Experiment, which has my favorite anti-Trump song I've ever written out.
Yeah.
The impetus of that band is not about that necessarily, but just that's the hard music. That's where I can,
Yeah.
like, get it all out, you know. And then I have
Badass.
my like more like kind of chill, solo-y stuff for when trying to make a song every 2 weeks, like
Right? Yeah, sometimes. Oh, jeez. Oh, God. There's a gun to my head.
Yeah, exactly. Hope you like it. Yeah,
But, like, that is a good point, though. It is important to have multiple outlets so that,
I think so.
yeah. You can. Because we're complex human beings.
Totally. You have a range of emotions, right? So like, Decibel Experiment is loud, fast, hard. And then I've got Part-Time Liar with Dave Klopp and Dan Frio.
Yeah.
Which hopefully working on some more of that stuff. That's more like bluesy, jammy stuff. And then I've got my own thing going on, which is kind of a little bit of other stuff. So
Nice one, man.
yeah, man, it's important. Same thing, like when you talk about getting in bursts, I get in bursts and I go, well, I don't know if this will fit for what this fits over here, or this fits over here. Kind of put that in a little bucket, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
you don't deny yourself like, oh, I can't do a song like that. You just go like, oh, could belong over here with the cult
Yeah,
band, you know, or
for sure. Like,
yeah.
yeah, because the limitation of humor, even that being a limitation sometimes. If you hear the songs, it's like straight street punk, then metal, and then ska, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, but it was all locked into that box of humor. Yeah,
Yeah.
so even something you love can limit you. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. If you're stuck on a deserted island, what albums would you need to get through? Or songs? How's that?
Yeah, I'm gonna need some Beatles for sure. Beatles #1 forever.
Mm-hmm.
I have this theory that some songs are so perfect that somebody had to write them eventually. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
whoever was able to pluck them out of the ether.
Yeah.
And the Beatles, in my opinion, were able to pluck the most perfect songs out of the ether.
Yeah.
Yeah, being real. Definitely some Beatles. Either Tenacious D, Lonely Island, or Bo Burnham for comedy's sake.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to need some hip hop. My brain
Yeah.
needs hip hop too. And so, therefore, it'll either be The Coup, Boots Riley's group, The Coup, or Hieroglyphics, Souls of Mischief, Del the Funky Homo Sapien, maybe even Arrested Development. I like that positivity, creative, weirdo hip hop.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Me too. Definitely.
Yeah.
I like that. So you've got like rock, melodic stuff, some comedy, and some hip hop together. It's a good
Yeah.
combo.
My brain,
Yeah. That keeps you
I'm the
going.
kind of guy who would much rather order an appetizer plate than sometimes. Yeah,
Got the sampler.
yeah, a little of everything.
That's also where there's like no rules, where like hip hop really became rock, took over rock and roll. Like talk about like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and like people get weird about people that are not like rock and roll rock. Like, dude,
Yeah.
the essence of rock is so in hip hop and so many other genres.
Oh,
But
100%.
especially during that time, right? When they're just like throwing it in the mix. There's no rules. Take that, flip that around. Put
And
this
in
over
that
here.
way, like some of these new bedroom kids making their stuff
Yeah.
are like really punk. Like
Yeah,
that
totally.
DIY till I
Same
die
aesthetic.
thing. Yeah, actually, they are literally doing the same aesthetic too, with like ripped jeans and stuff now. It's more than just a DIY independent thing. Yeah, like
Yeah.
coming back.
Yeah.
It's fun. Colored hair.
Yeah, I think
That's
I
like
love the
growing up
idea.
in the grunge world. I'm an '82, right? It's so easy.
Yeah,
Jeans and hoodies and t-shirts. And,
totally. It's now becoming a hip thing again, you know.
heck yeah.
For the young people trying to be hip, you know.
Trying to be like, oh, this is what you mean.
That's right, exactly. Just mimicking what we've always been, you know. So that's cool.
If you don't,
We'll
ever
let you
change,
in.
If you don't ever change,
Yeah.
eventually you will be cool again.
Eventually, you come back around and you're cool again. That's it. That's it. Those are words of wisdom now. Now that we've lived some life, you know, you go like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
comes back around.
I'm in my 40s, trust me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're in the process of making something, do you ever get in kind of like a flow state where everything else kind of goes away? It's almost
Oh,
like
absolutely.
it just connects and you're just like, whew, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Talk
love
about that a little bit.
All of a sudden, 6 hours is gone. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure there's some ADHD in this old noggin, and
Sure.
that hyper focus thing is very relatable. An all or nothing kind of proposition, you know. But there's a real beauty to that. I think that's almost like a spiritual kind of thing where you just disappear, and you know, like that old Michelangelo quote, like the statue was always there. I just removed what wasn't it, or whatever the quote is about. You know, making the David. It's like you're creating this thing that's already existing. You're just trying to not get in the way.
Like not overthink it too hard. That's actually why I call this podcast "Be Creative, Be Free." Because when I'm really like in the creative zone, I am truly free. Like everything else is gone, and it's just me and the thing I'm doing, and it's such a amazing feeling.
I think that like a lot of the best songs I've written wrote themselves, basically. You
Mm-hmm.
know, because if I was trying to overthink it, it probably wouldn't have ended up catchy. It would have been overthought.
It's
I always
true.
say like I'm not a good songwriter, so my songs come out really catchy.
But maybe that's not true though. Maybe it's just getting out of your own way, and it comes out. And
I guess.
I think it's true though. I think it's totally true. Some of the best ones were like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, all these stories about like this person just wrote that song in like 2 minutes, and it's like the greatest
Yeah,
hit ever. Boredom is huge.
that is a really good point because I feel like there's a generation missing out on boredom that would be so great for them just to be bored a little bit.
Yeah,
Now it's like you have to force yourself to be bored. You have
it's
to,
true. Yeah.
I carve time to have to be bored,
Yeah,
Like,
because you know,
all
there's like
right.
that 5 hour podcast you want to listen to, and then there's
It's so much. I know.
yeah,
There's just, it's so cool. And then sometimes you're just like, all right, everything is off. I'm not doing it. Just, I'm going to go be a monk for like an hour. Just
yeah.
like,
My
like,
first job, my first job in high school was at a little family-owned flower shop,
mm,
and my job was just taking care of all the flowers. So I would just for like maybe 5 hours a day water plants, just
yeah.
mindlessly just watering plants. It was awesome, great opportunity to just let my mind wander and
Yep.
yeah, repetitive, non-thinking stuff. Two thumbs up.
Right. We
Yeah.
all run away from that so much to try to, make a living and stuff sometimes. But if you could find something that does both of those things, it's even better. We always think about that. It's like my wife and I were like, man, someday, like maybe when he's off and he's got his own thing, we just sell it all and I'll go be a barista somewhere or just chill
Mhm.
somewhere. Maybe not a barista. Maybe like do like a little book thing or like a little guitar shop thing or like a little, you know,
That'd be
just
groovy.
something that's not always six things coming at the same time.
Yeah, you don't need to chase all the time, right? Like
Exactly. Exactly.
I've found a wonderful balance recently over like the last year. I'm only working 2.5 days, maybe 3 days a week at the tattoo shop, and
That's
then
awesome.
that I'm not like getting rich or anything, but I am making enough to live, and then I'm able to hire myself those other days. And I couldn't place any more value on that.
Yeah, see that is rich.
Yeah.
That is success and rich because you think about how like the old school way is, oh, I'm gonna make a lot of money and then I'm gonna retire and then I'm gonna enjoy my life.
I know,
Like,
right? As soon as I'm old and decrepit, I'm gonna be happy.
wait. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Then I'll be too old to enjoy it. So
Yeah.
then I think more people are trying to realize that. I think some of that also maybe that was pandemic induced, I don't know, but I think
Mhm.
it kind of gave everybody a little reset of thinking of like, what do I want to be doing with my life and time? You
Yeah.
know,
I
maybe I
kind
could
of
do a little bit better at balance. I don't know. That could have happened here
this
for
is
me
gonna
a little
sound a
bit.
little bit grim, but I kind of gave up on the hope of ever retiring like maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just don't see it as being part of my life today.
No, but when you really think about it, it's about having something you love, not doing anything. I think like
Hmm.
if you if you can just like you're doing, you're incorporating what you love, you have a good balance. Like that is like retirement in my mind. Like that is what it
Yeah,
should be. That should be the balance, right? Because like when people go off and they retire, they don't have anything. Then they just go like, because I think we do need purpose as people, and
absolutely.
um, and like if you could at least be doing something that's chill that you enjoy doing anyway. Like I agree. I don't think I'll ever be like what you would think of as retired. I think I
No,
just would rather just be doing have more freedom to do what I want to do and still live. That's really what it's about. I think. Have that.
100%. I
Yeah.
consider myself retired from doing corporate video. I'll never
Yeah.
do corporate video again, but I'm still very passionate about film, right? So I'll hire myself, I'll make stuff for friends, but that is no, doesn't bring me joy.
And there you go. So how's the film? What was the
Yeah, it's pretty solid. I mean, I'll happily admit exactly like what's wrong with it. there's definitely some audio issues. I made it for $7,000. You know, it's like 80 minutes long or so. I'm proud of a lot of aspects of it. The storyline and the concept, I'm quite proud of. Some elements of the execution, I'm pretty stoked on. I was able to get a free cameo out of Kiefer Sutherland. That was neat.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
I've been tattooing him for a while. So,
Awesome.
yeah, a mutual friend of ours plays music with his drummer. Kiefer has a band. They do like outlaw country music.
Yeah,
Actually, quite good.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So I was editing the film during COVID, and I had maybe like 2 beers in me, just enough to have the courage to text him. Finally, you know, he gave me his number years ago. I'm like, oh my gosh, I might actually do it. And he didn't have anything else to do, so he sent me back a video from his phone.
That's awesome.
It was really cool.
That's great. I think he has Rocco DeLuca in his band, right? He plays the lap steel, I think.
Oh yeah, maybe.
I don't know. He was killer. I remember doing some shows at the same time with him, and he was like headlining. He was like killer at lap steel, Ben Harper-y kind of guy, and he probably more bluesy. And then like I remember Kiefer kind of like had an eye for him or was managing him or something, and I think he's
awesome.
in his new band or whatever. Yeah, he's
brilliant, man.
So he clearly knows how to surround himself with great people too. What about like advice for young artists trying to do some drawing or getting into that kind of stuff? What would you say to encourage them into that?
Give up.
Or there you go, perfect. You'll never make anything out of it. Just stop.
Yeah. No. Quite the opposite, though. But like, I would say a couple things. Number one, there's no shame in having a day job. Just find a day job that makes you as happy as possible, and do hire yourself on your time off. Think about it like that. Like you're your own little boss. In the visual arts, I would say learn to animate. That is maybe one of the most useful tools you can have, because the video games industry is bigger than anything, and you can also make films with it. Like, there's so much you can do with that one specific medium. I really wish I had learned about computer animation. Everything I did was like traditional drawn or clay, and don't aim to be poor, but if you can manage your life expectations and what you consider necessary, then that gives you all the freedom to do it. Like, my monthly, what I have to make is like so little compared to a lot of people that it makes it possible, you know? Like,
right, making life choices to make it possible, and then everything is gravy from there, right? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you could grow upon that, but just to be smart about that too.
Yeah, you can't get in your own way, you know? Like,
yeah,
okay, why do I need this $500 a month car? $500 a month could be so much else, you know? Like,
yeah. If you had to give up either drawing or music, how about those two? I know there's so many. I don't know which one to pit them against each other. Which would be worse?
oh man,
this is the sadistic part of the podcast.
Yeah, you evil man. Thought we were friends, Brandon.
I know. You thought you knew me, but no. You only choose one.
Yeah, I would give up painting.
Okay.
That's something I love, and it's a great way to express, but it's not like so deeply ingrained in my humanity. Yeah. Dang, that would suck though. I would still like in the sneaky, like go into the bathroom and like do a little drawing and stuff. You know, like.
I mean, the music has to have art with it. So
yeah, exactly. Only album cover. Yeah.
You're like, I found a loophole.
Full on.
That's a tough one. If you couldn't do your creative outlet, like what would you do? If you couldn't do your creative outlets,
you know, like
what would you do?
Knock on wood. Sometimes I think about like what would happen if I went blind or something like that. You know, what would the backup plan be? Music and screenwriting, I guess. Like, you know, it's good to have like that Buddhist approach of like thinking about death and that kind of stuff, because it
Mm-hmm.
prepares you, can inspire you.
Live for the day, for the
Darren
moment.
too.
Yeah, no, that's you did well. I'm sorry, I had to do that. But it's always an interesting question because it's like, oh man, it's like, did you cut off your right arm or your left leg? You're like, Motivation and inspiration happen in the weirdest ways sometimes, right?
Honestly, yes. Boredom equals creativity and depression equals productivity. What?
It's a weird T-shirt, man, but we could go for it.
Just wait, it'll come full circle. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think about AI influence into everything we're doing, with whether it be art, filmmaking, music making? Seems like every
Yeah.
day there's a new model, new things, new tools. There's a lot of weird lines with all that stuff.
It's scary. I hate the stealing aspect of it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
if anyone's listening to this with the ability to do so, feel free to steal this idea. But if I had the ability to do this, I really do think that Sarah Silverman and these other people who are suing OpenAI have a really strong case for copyright violation. And so, if I had the ability to make an ethically sourced OpenAI or AI model, that's where I would go. Yeah, man. Like, there's plenty public domain stuff you can build off of, right? Like,
Yeah, totally. I think that's kind of where it's hopefully leaning towards, because it's with anything. It's like Wild West. Everybody's just trying to be first,
yeah.
and the rules don't matter.
Oh, if I don't do it, someone else will.
And then they just try to capitalize on all that. And then the reins of reality start to happen. People go like, and let's put some guardrails on it, and let's
Yeah.
let's rein it in and make it not stealing. Like it shouldn't be stealing. And a lot of the tools are very interesting in the filmmaking side. I've had some fun playing with those, but not like trying to say, oh, make me a Quentin Tarantino film or something.
Yeah.
Not like that. But like ways that have refined the tools of the monotony and the repetitive nature of some of the process. I think
Yeah.
that is pretty cool. That will probably affect certain people where their job is doing that repetitive job over and over again.
Truth.
But then that's part of any kind of disruption. But I always wonder if like maybe that'll kick them into being like, you know what, I have some ideas and I can run this thing. And I don't know. It's like it's just like it's kind of like when the internet started killing off magazines and newspapers, and there
Yeah.
are certain amounts of disruption that will always happen, but you still need to know how to use it. It's like another tool or another brush, so to speak.
Yeah. Vinyl sales are going up. And so maybe
Totally.
there will eventually be a, like Dogma 95, is that what it was? These lists of standards they had to meet for the Dogma style films, where it was like if you had music in the film, it had to be like actually there. You couldn't add it afterwards. It was all very honest,
Oh,
you know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
so maybe in 30 years, there'll be like a old school, like, oh, is this one of those real films or is this like a.
Yeah, the pendulum swings back around. Oh, this has people in it. That's crazy. They had actors? It's nuts. And they're all wearing 90s outfits. No, I'm just kidding. This is the bumpy road part of the whole process of like, a new age of tools. And
It's true, and I don't want to be a Luddite, but like,
no, because you can't. You just got to run with you got to run with the tools as you just have to. It's like part of being up on things, but
yeah,
we should be encouraging people to be having their ideas stolen as input.
yeah. Well, in Salvador Dali's book, 50 Secrets of Magic Craftsmanship, great book, by the way, he talks about using different tools, right? And he says that, like, there's no secret that Vermeer was born the same year that they invented the optical lens.
Right.
Fascinating.
Exactly.
He built camera obscuras, and yeah, so back then they were probably like, "What's this bullshit?"
Like exactly. Or like some of those first, rotoscoping cameras, or the what is it, the multiplane camera that Disney was using, and
Oh yeah.
or it's probably somebody who's like, it should only be drawn one frame at a time by one person. Like
Exactly. That's cheating.
this will always happen, right? In
Yeah.
in progress, but but I totally understand how people are scared of it. It just makes me think of like all those other kinds of changes through time. Film to digital, and how music has changed through time. Vinyl is back. People want to own something tangible again. It's like never really left, but it's like, oh, this is cool. I like this.
Definitely.
And I think that's really cool. I love that. I love that you could stream everything on the earth, what you really want to own. You can get a vinyl of it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you're right. Maybe there'll be some more tangible ways to kind of have it work, more ethically. I think
Potentially.
certain companies say they're trying. So.
And I do see like a potential for the future of like, if you do want your creations to be included in the AI model, like a licensing style agreement, right? Like we already have this for so many other things, for syncing music and TV shows and all that. Like,
yeah, I mean, think of the days of sampling, right? Like that was totally off the books for a little while, and nobody got paid, and then they figured it out, and then the artists that got initially felt like they got screwed ended up having a whole other career or making great money in this whole second generation resurgence of what they made being used this way. So
yeah,
that's a good point. It's a good point. And maybe that's the way to fix it a little bit as we go down this brave new world of wherever it's going. I mean,
yes, take my stuff, just cash me that check,
Right, because once it's out, it's kind of out. So why not license it, influence others? And what inspires you now? Like, what are you doing now? What's
Well, the eventuality of death is always a big inspiration.
It's a motivator.
I'm just being real. Like that is,
I love it. No,
that. Like I grew up super mega Catholic, and when I stopped believing in that, like you don't think that there's anything afterwards. The best you can do is leave a legacy, right? And
correct. Yeah.
So it's just a race against death to get as much creative stuff out there. That's really how I think about it, Brandon.
Hey, you're not alone, man. I've had those thoughts many times, and it's like it's a snapshot. You're capturing a snapshot of time and creating your folio of your life in a way. In some ways,
And you see all these other artists that are heroes who've created things that will last so much longer than they lasted on Earth. Like,
you're birthing something from nothing. So there's a great Tom Petty quote on that where he talks about that. Like that's why he always loved making music, was because every song is you've birthed a child from nothing. It was thin air, and now it is part of the earth, and it's like the coolest thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that can be applied to anything that's creatively made.
Definitely.
You have cobbled something together that is now its own life. So what a great way to spend your time.
100%
in this life, right?
Yeah. And I guess the other way you can have a legacy, I don't have any kids of my own, but I do have a niece and a nephew. So, influencing the next generation is always good.
Awesome, man. Well, this has been great.
So grateful to talk to you.
Sitting down, hanging out, and talking again. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a while, Brandon.
I know, it's been a while. It's so weird. Time is so weird, especially these days. It just feels so condensed and flying so fast. And
oh, absolutely. Yeah, the last 5 years just feel like a bunch of mashed potatoes. I have no idea something was 18 months ago or 36.
And I think we all have like a 2-year blip too, that is really weird. I always talk about that with people. It's like, oh no, that was actually 3 years ago, not last year. Oh. Yeah, I know. We can't control it anyway. So,
Oh, my last piece of advice to your listeners.
Yes.
I believe wholeheartedly in kindness and genuine care and concern for the common human. And I feel like I have opened a lot of doors in my life through kindness and just being a kid who grew up on Sesame Street. You know what I mean?
Yep. No, that's great. It's good advice, because if you could never really plan your path, right? It's a consistent, like, potential door. I'll walk through the door. Somebody helps me here, so go here. It's like, it's never a straight line. It's always like, wah,
oh yeah, this was not the plan. This was not.
And the more, And the more you can be open and kind and, loving to other people, then hopefully there's reciprocation, and that just helps to get through life, right?
Yeah, can you imagine going
Absolutely,
around
yeah.
being a jerk all the time? I bet everyone would be a jerk back, right?
It'd be so tiring. No
Yeah.
one would want to. You'd be like, why am I always alone?
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Well, you would have known, Brandon, because you're a very kind person.
Oh, well, thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course.
You too. You too. And it's great talking with you.
It's all love.
All right.
Peace and happiness, all the good things in life.